Hi. My question is for Dr. John Ramsey, who quoted with relish Genesis chapter 3 and said we've got to learn the lessons from the fall. But hasn't Genesis 3 been used with great, terrible consequences throughout history, especially when God in Genesis 3:16 told the women, because of your misdeed, all women will suffer in childbirth greatly. And then from then on, for centuries, whenever women tried to help each other with potions, they were sometimes burned as witches for daring to try and get in the way of God's demand. So my question for the doctor, John Ramsey, John Ramsey, if he'd been alive in 1853 advising Queen Victoria, when Queen Victoria said she wanted to use chloroform, and some of her clerics said, no, ma'am, you've got to endure the pain of childbirth, it's God's law, would you have been on the side of the clerics, or would you have told Queen Victoria, don't dare be a transhumanist, take your pain like a real human being?
Okay, thank you very much.
Right. This sort of question is one with different perspectives depending on the spiritual state of the person in question. So it is the rule of the order of man and woman is a representation of the necessity of man in the image of, as identified with, as woman has a sort of a symbol of man, to obedience to God, to come back to union with God. This is to our salvation. We must obey God because we've broken our one will with him. So this is very important for salvation. Of course, secular people will use this in an abusive way, and they confuse obedience, free obedience, to someone controlling. So we must get that separated out. But in the case of Queen Victoria, ideally, it is good to endure the pain which comes upon us. This is good for our salvation. This is a spiritual life and talk, the way we're taught to do things. And if we endure this, it helps us to detach from the feelings of the flesh. It helps us to learn to prioritize spiritual things. However, the church always shows compassion and care. And if someone is suffering, it's too much to endure, then of course it's able to use various medicines and stuff to alleviate the pain to some degree. But we mustn't run around in a culture where we're seeking to remove pain as all drugs and morphines, because this is not to our benefit spiritually. So for spiritual lives, there are different levels. If a person can endure, it's for their benefit, greater benefit. But if not, the church has always allowed the use of various things to take away the pain.
Okay, thank you very much for the second. Yes, please.
Yes, Father, I would like to ask you a question. You said that we are made in the image of God, and that means actually, from what you said, it has to do with the governments of the creation, also self-determination, reason. If this is the case, because what you say is also saying from the patristics, then what happens with the people that do not possess this kind of qualities? So people that they do not have reason anymore, people with dementia. That means that they were created up to a point in the image of God, and from that point on, what happens with them? Thank you very much.
Right, well, we're created in this way, all man has potential, but yes, due to the fall and our bodies fall towards corruption and death, our body means that our capacity to exercise our freedom, our reason, and determination can be severely limited, and even from infants at birth. This doesn't actually change the character of the soul, in the sense, in the image of God, which is the primary location of these things. And yet the soul is integrated to the body, and so its participation in the flesh can be severely limited. But this is not a problem if the person is still brought into the church and able to engage with the church with carers, givers, parents, friends, etc. around them. Someone has dementia. Again, I'm looking after an old monk who is in this situation. We can still take the Holy Communion to it. This in itself doesn't remove the image of God. And of course, we are looking for the resurrection at the end of time, when we'll all be resurrected, all the body will be healed, or there'll be no sickness or anything like this, and man will be able to fully show forth himself in the image of God. It'll be in perfect completion with the body helping along with the soul. So each person, the soul is still in the image of God, even if the body is incapacitating it to exercise that in this world. But that incapacity of the body will be healed at the resurrection. So yeah, it doesn't undermine the fact of that question. It's not saying that God failed, it's just the problem of the fall.
Okay, thank you very much. Father Patrick, τελευταία ερώτηση σύντομη.
Thank you. Question for Professor Doat. He was talking about the Russian, the French, and the American transhumanism, saying that in the America, the link with religions maybe are more close in Russia again, and not so much in France. But inside the transhumanist movement in America, which I think you know quite well, do you say the thing? I mean, people like Damour, we can say maybe Feridun Asfandari or James Hughes, etc. Will you say that this link with religious thinking still exists in the movement, inside the movement, or it's something different? Because people, as you're also saying, Bainbridge or even Ray Kurzweil usually don't talk about themselves as transhumanists. So are they, or are they not linked with religion?
Okay, thank you. That's a very good question. I think they depart themselves from traditional religious churches, but we could speak about the search as a spiritual dynamics embedded in their search for transcendence. But yes, we could, as an interpretation, to speak a kind of religious aspiration, but perhaps a post-theistic one, as I mentioned. So in relying upon spiritual categories that depart sharply from traditional religious categories, I would say. But we should go further on this and we can have discussion about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.